Am I audible? Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, just okay. Very good. So welcome all of you. Welcome all of you to this next session on the cranial nerves. So today we are going to discuss what we are going to discuss about the cranial nerves five and seventh, fifth and seventh. Clear? Again, I welcome all of you. Quick discussion on the cranial nerves fifth and seventh. Myself, Dr. Ankit Khandelwal. It's a special class. Special classes or classes around 1 hour, 1.5 hours. Okay, I'm a anatomy educator in an Academy Plus platform. Here's a code for all of you guys who want to subscribe for the Plus courses. They may do it. That would be a code. Is you may note it down. So whenever you want to subscribe, you can subscribe. You get some discount for it. Okay. Okay. So let's start the session, guys. Let's start the session. Before the starting of any session, any doubts? Any doubts? Any queries? Open up and ask. Yes. Welcome Himanshi, Sushmita, Ravi, Chinu, JV, Mrunal, Prajwal, Sunita, Gayatri, Bhavana. Most of the already known names, few of the new ones. Yes. Any queries? Any doubts regarding anything? Ask them, we'll try to sort it out. If not, we'll move to the topic. The topic is our cranial nerve number fifth, that is the trigeminal. And once we are done with the trigeminal, we move on to the next cranial nerve, which is our seventh, that is the facial nerve. Yesterday we talked about the third, fourth, and the sixth, so therefore the sixth one is missing over here. In the night tonight, we are going to talk about the ninth and the 10th cranial nerves. So it is around 9 p.m. only. We'll talk about the ninth cranial nerve. Okay, so that is the plan for tonight. Okay, okay. Any doubts, guys? Any doubts that is popping in your mind? You are free to ask. Else we move on to the topic. Else we move on to the topic. Okay, welcome all is well and sigil. Yes. Okay. So in moving to the topic, any doubt comes out, just let us know. So start with the nerve that is the trigeminal nerve. Start with the nerve that is the trigeminal nerve. Okay, few salient points over this. It is the fifth cranial nerve. It is the fifth cranial nerve that we all know. Sensory motor mixed. Sensory motor mixed. Fifth cranial nerve, sensory motor or mixed. Trigeminal is M is what? Motor or mixed, Chino? M could be both. Yes, very good, Imanshi and Murnal. Okay, very good. So yes, it is a mixed cranial nerve. It is a mixed cranial nerve, meaning by few of the fibers are sensory, few are motor. But yes, sensory is predominantly it is sensory, predominantly it is motor. Predominantly what it is? Predominantly it is sensory or predominantly motor? Predominantly it is very good. Predominantly it is sensory. A very small part is motor. A very small part is motor. Largest cranial nerve. It is the largest cranial nerve. Largest cranial nerve. Okay, I'm just writing CN for the cranial nerve so that we don't have to write all the time. As the word says, trigeminal, so it has three components which are conventionally said to be V1, V2, and V3. Therefore, it is also the largest. V1 refers to, I guess all of us know, or most of us know, the ophthalmic division. V2 refers to the maxillary division. And V3 refers to the mandibular division. V3 refers to the mandibular division. These are the three divisions of the tri means three. V1 and V2, they are completely sensory. They are completely sensory. V3 over here is slightly mixed over here. Good afternoon, Bipanpreet, and all of you. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome, Stark, Sugnesh, Sanjay, and all of you. So I repeat again, V1 and V2, they are completely sensory. They don't supply any muscle. They are completely sensory. V3 is mixed, so it supplies muscle. Therefore, combined trigeminal becomes your mixed cranial nerve. Therefore, it is predominantly sensory. Why? Because these V1 and V2 are completely sensory. This is also partially sensory. Therefore, it is a predominantly sensory. Clear? Okay. Now, how we are going to proceed in the nerve part? This is a general idea that we have just shared. I guess the point is clear and out till now. Just a brief overview. Now, how are we going to proceed to the topic? The topic is the cranial nerve. How do we proceed? We go from proximal to distal. We go from proximal to distal. Proximal means where does the nerve starts, where are its cell bodies, that is inside the brain. We go from the inside the brain to outside whatever the target area in the head and neck or whatever area it is. From there to there we go. So therefore in the brain, when we talk of the brain, we come to the term that is a nucleus. Come to the term that is a nucleus. Okay. How many nucleus are there in the trigeminal nerve? Yes. How many nucleus are there in the trigeminal nerve? Has how many nucleus? Options 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many nucleus? 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. Okay, all is well. Tell me the 5 nucleuses. Name the 5 nucleuses. I will tell the 4 ones and sensory. No, 5. What are the 5 nucleuses? The spinal, very good. So I'm just writing over a spinal. Any else? Sensory, chief sensory. Very good, chief sensory. One is spinal, that is chief sensory. Then we have the mesencephalic, very good. Mesencephalic nucleus, and we have the motor nucleus, very good. What is the fifth one? Which is the fifth one? They are mainly four. They are mainly four nucleuses. Out of these 4 nucleuses, these 3 are your sensory nucleus, and this is the motor nucleus. Obviously, the name is motor, so it is motor nucleus. It means that inside the brain, you have some of the cell bodies which are sensory, which are completely sensory. So they are actually taking up the sensation from the head neck, and one would be having a cell body which will send the axons which are motor. That is a simple idea. So obviously this one is going to be going across with which nerve? It is going across with the V3 nerve, and these are going across with the V1, V2, and V3. Are you getting a point? These nucleuses are 4. One is the spinal nucleus, one is the chief sensory nucleus, one is the mesencephalic. These 3 are sensory. So they will be getting axons from V1, V2, V3, all of them. Okay. One is a motor nucleus. It will be sending axons to V3 only. V3 only. That is point. I guess the point is clear. Now their locations, where are they located? I guess some of you may be knowing it. Where is the spinal nucleus located? In the brain stem or the brain part. In the brain, where it is the location of the spinal nucleus. Its location is mainly in the MO, medulla oblongata, may also reach the upper part of the spinal cord. Upper part of the spinal cord. Okay. So spinal nucleus is lying in the medulla and also in the upper part of the spinal cord. Where is the chief sensory nucleus located? Chief sensory nucleus located. It is mainly located in the pons, pontine region. The motor nucleus is also located in the pontine region. And mesencephalon means what? I guess most of you know. What does mesencephalon means? It means a midbrain. So it lies in the midbrain. Yesterday, when we were doing the 3rd, 4th, and 6th cranial nerve, we showed you the cross section of the midbrain. There, you remember, there was a mesencephalic nucleus in the periaqueductal gray matter. So there was mesencephalic nucleus in the periaqueductal gray matter when we are talking of the midbrain part. Now let us see where in the brain these other nucleuses are lying. So let us have a look at them from inside. Here we go. This is your part of, say, the upper part of the pons. So what do you expect to see over here in the upper part of the pons? We expect to see the motor nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Yes. And you expect also to see the main sensory nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. You can very well see which is medial, which is lateral. It's not needless to tell you which is medial, which is lateral. M for M. Medial is always motor. So therefore, motor, this purple color nucleus is lying more medial than this green color, which is the main sensory nucleus, which is lying a little bit lateral. They are where at the upper part of the pons you can see these nucleuses over there. You can see the 4th ventricle is now going inside. Okay, that is the upper part of the pons. So here you see the 2 nucleuses. Mesencephalic you already have seen. Mesencephalic you already have seen. Okay, now if you look at the other part of the pons or the medulla, you will see this spinal nucleus will be present nearly everywhere. Here you will see. This is the lower part of the pons, even over here or in the medulla oblongata. What you see is the spinal nucleus which is running down. The spinal nucleus and tract of the trigeminal nerve. Okay, the spinal nucleus and tract of the trigeminal nerve. So just have a brief idea that where these nuclei will lie. Now look at this whole brainstem thing over here. This is the region of the mesencephalic, where in the midbrain. Main sensory is where in the pons region, and adjacent to it you have the motor nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Can you make them out? So if there is a pontine lesion, you be very well aware, okay, these things may get injured over here. If there's a midbrain lesion, mesencephalic. Then you see what the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve, it is going throughout the medulla. It will also go into the upper 1 to 2 segment of the cervical spinal cord. It reaches. Therefore, the name is spinal because it reaches upper 1 C1 or C2 level of the spinal cord. Therefore, the name is spinal nucleus. Okay, so you can see over here. Now, as you have seen over here, then we can also comment on what do they do. I mean, these are the sensory, so they are getting the axons. They are getting the, or you can they're getting the sensation from the head and neck. What sort of sensation do they get? What sort of sensation do they get? Mesencephalic nucleus gets what? Yes, very good. So the column over here is general somatic afferent, perfectly all right. But mesencephalic nucleus is getting what? It is getting the proprioception. It is getting the proprioception. From where? Very good, Nitish, JV, Sunita, and Sajil. Very good. But where? From where? Proprioception. Head neck from where? Head neck. Clean the bar for head neck only, but from where in the head neck? Whatever joints are moving in your head neck, the TMJs, the extraocular muscle, the tongue muscles, all those proprioception. Okay, so whatever you can think of proprioception from the head neck region, all that is reaching this proprioception fibers in the mesencephalic nucleus. Now the thing over here is mesencephalic nucleus, the peripheral process which is going to the head and neck, its cell bodies are located inside over here only. So it is the only site, it is the only site in the whole brain who has the pseudo-unipolar neurons inside, pseudo-unipolar neurons inside the CNS. Pseudo-unipolar neurons inside the CNS. Now what we'll see the others also. What is this main sensory nucleus getting? What sort of sensation? Touch and pressure. Touch and pressure. Mainly from where? From the face region. But where is its cell body located? The first neuron cell body is located where? Its cell body is located. You have a trigeminal ganglion. You have a very good. You have a trigeminal ganglion for this and for this also. Where? Question is, where is this trigeminal ganglion located? It is located close to the, yes, Meckel's cave. Fantastic answer. Close to the petrous, apex of the petrous bone. Name is known as Meckel's cave, where it is located close to the apex of the petrous temporal bone. Okay, so trigeminal ganglion is for the chief sensory and your spinal nucleus. Location of that is also important. Let us look where it is actually located. This is the region of the trigeminal ganglion. You can see the V1, V2, V3s are coming. All their sensory sensations are coming. Okay, and they are relaying over here. Which sensations? The pain, temperature, touch, pressure, and all. While if it was a proprioception will not relay over here. It will directly go. It will go where it will go. Enter into the pons. It will ascend up, go into the mesencephalic nucleus. So if this red color is a proprioception, it is going like this. If the blue color is a pain, touch, temperature, it is cell bodies over here, then the central processes, they will go like this into the chief sensory, or if it is pain and temperature, they will descend down into the spinal nucleus. Are you getting a point? This trigeminal ganglion is what it is. It's a sensory ganglion. It's a sensory ganglion. Now you can see this red color representing the motor root. Can you see this red color? This one over here, that's representing the motor root. That is being carried by the mandibular division. Now you can very well see over here, it is not relaying in this ganglion, not it is passing through it. It is away from this and it directly enters over here. Basically, it is coming from this motor nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Basically, it is coming from this motor nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Okay. I hope you got the point. So that is different. We already saw in the pons where was the motor nucleus. In the upper part of the pons, we had the motor nucleus. So from that motor nucleus, the axons were coming and they were traveling like this and they passed with the mandibular nerve. Is the point clear? Are you getting a point? What sensations are carrying in what way? So pain, touch, temperature, their cell bodies over here, peripheral process, and this is the central process. Proprioception, its cell body is located over here. So first order, it inside the CNS, pseudo-unipolar mesencephalic nucleus, that is a point to note. And motor, its nucleus or cell bodies are over here. They will send the axons. They come through the mandibular division. The story goes on somewhat like this. Okay, so this is how the story goes on. This is how the story goes on, and then they actually function in this manner as we are discussing over here. Okay, Meckel's cave in the apex of the petrous temporal bone, spinal nucleus. So this was carrying touch pressure. That would be carrying the pain, temperature, pain and temperature. Motor, motor will send into the V3 for the muscles. Now, how are these located? Meaning by this complexity. Why? Because we have three: V1, V2, V3. Motor is specific for V3, so it's causing not much of a confusion. Confusion comes from this. Okay, that mesencephalic or chief sensory or this longer one is spinal. Where are the V1 fibers? Where are the V2 fibers? Where are the V3 fibers? Where are the V1, V2 or V3 fibers? That is a confusion. Various theories have come out. Various theories will come out. They say some says V1 are below, V2 is in the middle, V3 is represented above. Okay, in the spinal nucleus. Meaning by are getting a see the spinal is getting pain temperature from all V1, V2, V3, all V1, V2, V3. So there are various theories that okay, where is V1, where is V2, where is V3. So there are a couple of theories which are running V1, V2, V3 over here. They're representing in this. Some says they're medial to lateral direction. Means V1 is lateral, V2 is more medial, V3 is most medial. So there are various theories. Now that is why, because there is like there's they interchange with each other. There's slight overlap over here. So nothing is clearly defined in most of the textbooks. So don't worry much about it. Okay, just remember upside down also you may remember that only. Although there are a couple of more, but you may refrain from that. Don't go into deep depth of it. There's no use of it. But still, spinal nucleus over here receiving pain temperature from V1, V2, V3. Chief sensory receiving touch pressure from V1, V2, V3. This is also getting from V1, V2, V3. Proprioception over here, few fibers are going to ascend V1, V2, V3, V1, V2, V3. And this motor is only for the V3. This motor is only for the V3. Are you getting a point? Where are the cell bodies? What is the trigeminal ganglion? Where are the cell bodies? The motors, the mesencephalic, and the other part. Okay. Now, if you have understood till now, that is, we have gone inside the brain how the things are happening. Let us come slightly outside the brain. And here you can see the fifth nerve. This is the anterior aspect of the brain stem. That's the ventral aspect of the brain stem. And here I guess you all can visualize the fifth nerve. Which is the fifth nerve over here? A, B, C, or D. Which is the fifth nerve? A, B, C, D. Which is the fifth nerve? Fifth nerve is said to be the largest cranial nerve, which is the largest over here. Very good. Largest is this over here. You can see this. This was our P for pons. This was our MB for midbrain. Below this was our MO for the medulla oblongata. Nitish, not a D. What happened? Not D, obviously. It is B. This pons, from inside the pons, you can see this is our. I ask you, where is the trigeminal nerve? Is the point clear? Okay. Typing mistake, no problem. This is our tri. So it is the largest. You can see from this width of the the thickness of the nerve, how thick it is. You can also see this 10th nerve is also very thick. It is also very thick. But 5th nerve is slightly more thicker than take any other nerve. So trigeminal nerve therefore is said to be the largest cranial nerve. Okay. Yes. Thick sensory, thin motor. So therefore you can see this motor. This is the motor component over here. That is the motor component, which is basically going into the V3, and this whole is the V1, V2, V3, the sensory component. Motor lies medially, as we have done it so many times. Motor lies medially over here. This is the motor that is lying medially. Which color to use? Okay, I guess this would be motor medially and sensory laterally. Okay, from the pons region. But again, understand, if you just think about, I'm making some nucleus inside. This is the mesencephalic nucleus, chief sensory nucleus, spinal nucleus. What does it tell us? It tells us one thing, that this whole area you have the nucleuses from here to here. It tells us if there is any lateral brain stem vascular syndrome, any lateral brain stem vascular syndrome, you have some involvement of the fifth nerve. Keep that in mind always. I repeat again, if there's any lateral, mainly lateral side. Lateral, why? Because spinal and sensory are mainly located lateral. Mesencephalic may be somewhat close to the medial, but yes, it is also present midbrain part. Any lateral brainstem vascular syndrome, you have normally the involvement of the fifth nerve. Normally involvement of the fifth nerve. So remember that. And fifth nerve is carrying what? It is carrying the sensation from the head and neck, and V3 is carrying your motor part. So if there is a pontine lesion, you will have masticatory muscle paralysis. Okay. So nucleus part over, and this nerve is coming out. Nerve is coming out two forms, the motor and the sensory roots. Now where will they go? As they come out, where will they go? As they come out from the brain, where do they go? They will go where? We just showed you. Yes. Seen this image earlier also? Again, see. So where are they going? They're coming out of the pons over this petrous temporal one. Yes, they relay over they pass through this Meckel's cave trigeminal ganglion. You can see the motor root, it is going separately. And these are your three areas, V1, V2, and the V3 part. V1, V2, and the V3 part. This is for reading any individual cranial nerve. What are the most important points we read regarding that nerve? See, for the reading any cranial nerve, to all of you, this is a good question that Nitish asked. Read it like a story. Read it like a story. Go from proximal to distal. From brain, where it is coming, what are the functional components? Where it is coming out of the brain, where does it pass, from which foramen does it pass, where it is cell body, and where in the head neck does it goes, pass through which foramen, what does it do. You will get the whole story. If you get the whole story, wherever there is a lesion, you know. But you have to start from the brain part. If you only read, okay, this is the course of the facial nerve, it goes like this, 5 branches over, that is a very superficial knowledge. It's not going to help you in the long term. If you only remember, okay, 5 branches of facial nerve, temporal, zygomatic, buccal, mandibular, cervical, over. I know facial nerve. You know, you don't even know, you know only 5% of the facial nerve. So great like this. Okay, then the diagrams and all, so that is all important. So once you start from the brain, once you are done with the brain part, you know around 70% of the nerve, because you have read the functional components also. You have read which are the nuclei, so you know much of the nerve before even it is coming out of the brain. Once it reaches in the out, once it goes out of the foramen, you know where it would go, what it would do. Okay, so from the brain part, that is very important. Okay, so you can see over here V1, V2, V3 entering through 3 different areas. V1 entering through the supraorbital fissure, V2 entering through the rotundum, and V3 entering through the oval. V3 entering through the oval. Now we have read all the nucleuses over here. Okay, it is a mixed nerve, and yesterday we talked about the cranial nuclei. Now it's your turn, guys, to tell me its functional components. Functional components of trigeminal nerve. Functional components of trigeminal nerve. It's a mixed nerve, so it will having afferent and efferent both. First of all, basic idea. It's a mixed nerve, so it will be having afferents and efferents both. If you start with the efferent, general somatic efferent, we have this, we have this, we have in the efferent column. In the afferent column, we have what? We have this and this. Then what we have this and we have this. Okay, let us tick mark. GSE 34612, no. SVE, no, means for the red color. Okay, SVE, spatial vessel efferent, for the pharyngeal arches, yes or no? SVE, pharyngeal arches 5, yes. GVE is for the parasympathetics. Parasympathetics, yes or no? Parasympathetics, no. Very good. GVA or SVA, visceral afferent. Visceral afferent, yes or no? Visceral afferent, no over here. GSA, general somatic afferent. General somatic afferent. General somatic afferent by the fifth nerve, obviously that is the main nucleus. And SSA, does it has SSA? Spatial somatic afferent? Spatial somatic afferent is only for 2 and 8, so we know over here. So we know, okay, have a general idea that, okay, mainly these are the two. And as it is the main sensory nerve, mainly it is GSA and some component is SVE. So we know, okay, it will be carrying the general somatic afferent from the face. All these sensations will be going through it, and we know it will be supplying the few of the muscles which are from the first pharyngeal arch, which are from the first pharyngeal. We know it. So simply basics. If you are good in the basics, you are good in the subject. Okay. So GSA, main sensory, having all the 3 components. Motor only will going by the V3 part. So we know this basic idea. Now we know much of the nerve, and then what is left is only the course and the branches. What is the course of it? So course we have seen already. It is coming on like this, passing through the ganglion. 3 different nerves, 3 different foramens. Why? There is always going to be a foramen. Take any cranial nerve, 12 out of 12, because they have to come out of the brain. They don't have to supply the brain. Brain is already the nerve. They have to supply the tissue which are outside the skull. So they have to have a foramen. V1, sorry, that first nerve, cribriform plate, second nerve, optic canal, third, fourth, sixth, SOF, V1, V2, V3 have seen over here, 7th, 8th nerve, internal auditory meatus, 9, 10, 11, jugular foramen, 12th nerve, hypoglossal canal. So take any cranial nerve, it has to come outside the brain, it has to come outside the skull, there has to be a foramen. There has to be a foramen. Okay, here you are seeing all the 3 different foramens they're passing. Okay, V1, V2, V3, V1, V2, V3. So now let us see individually, and let me show you the skull also, so that you have some idea. This is a, what do we say, the fossa, the cranial fossa is over here, and this is the area of the SOF. V1. So here we have the V1 entering over here. This you can see how close they are, rotundum and you have the oval. So these are your three over here. Three over. Okay, are you getting a point? These are three. So your trigeometrical scale is also somewhat over here. You can see V1, V2, V3. Is Does that make sense? How the proximity that makes. So now remember it is a V1, V2, V3. Try to now understand V1, V2, V3, how SOF is close to rotundum and how rotundum is close to oval. And rotundum is in between, so it is passes for the V2. SOF V1, oval behind V3. Simple. Okay. So we have gone this also now. They are coming out of the brain. Now let us see what are their various branches and all. So as we know that the main functional component, the main was GSA or SVE. What was the main functional component? GSA or SVE? The main functional component, the bulk was GSA. The bulk was GSA, a small part of the SVE. General somatic afferent. So we need to know at this particular diagram, I have shown you a number of times, n number of times, you know it very well, that where from the face are they carrying the sensation. This is the V1, this is your trigeminal sensory map. Okay, already written over here, very good. This is the area of the V1 being drained, V2 and V3 over here. V2 is not that small, it will also be supplying the whole the maxilla, the upper jaw. V3 is for your lower jaw. V1 is also supplying, you can see they all are going up till the scalp lateral or the middle part of the scalp. They will all go around the scalp also. So this is the area, this is the area. Tip of nose V1. So that's the tip of nose V1. Okay, remember that. Tip of nose V1. Okay, these are the trigeminal sensory map. They are taking these areas. Now, theoretically, they are said that ophthalmic nerve, if you look at the embryology, it is taking the sensations which were divided embryology coming from the frontonasal process. The maxillary nerve is taking the sensation of the part of the face which was derived from the maxillary process. Maxillary process is what? It is a branch of the mandibular process. Mandibular nerve takes the sensations from the part of the face developed by the mandibular arch, the first arch, which gives off the maxillary process. Sensory supply and embryo looking same. Yes, more or less same. They will slight overlapping, but yeah, most of these are same. So these are embryologically related. This part was, you remember, pharyngeal arches. The first pharyngeal arch, the mandibular arch, forming the mandible, the malleus and incus. Its nerve was mandibular nerve. Therefore, the sensation also is this part is, mandibular arch gave off the maxilla. Mandibular arch also gave rise to formation of zygomatic bone, the squamous part of temporal bone. You can see all that area is drained by sensory supplied by V3 nerve. Then its part maxillary, you can see this maxillary area. Maxillary nerve is taking the sensation from here. And this ophthalmic nerve, frontonasal process. Frontonasal gave rise to a medial nasal process, and also it will taking the part from this area, sensation of this area. So have that basic idea in your mind. Have that basic idea in your mind. Will that be clear? That could be a new question, or I don't think that has been asked, but still keep that in mind. Ophthalmic nerve, V1 I'm just writing frontonasal process, V2 I'm writing maxillary process, and V3 I'm writing mandibular arch or mandibular process. Mandibular process. This is how they go. I hope the point is clear. So we have now this basic idea, and this idea is for the GSA. That is general somatic afferent. That is why I'm showing you over here. The bulk over here. That is a GSA, general somatic afferent. And this is the small embryo over here. You can see the frontonasal process is this area, the maxillary process is this, and this is your mandibular process over here, maxillary over here, and this region is the frontonasal process. The small diagram just to revise your concepts over here. Point clear? Okay, now let us look at the individual nerves. So start with the V1. Where do we start? We start with the V1 over here. Just after this, we start with the V1. Now V1, as it is coming out of the pons, it passes through the ganglion and all. It passes. Does it pass to the sinus or not? Has it any relation to the cavernous sinus or not? Yes or no? Yes, it has a relation on the lateral wall. So V1 extra you need to remember lies in the lateral wall. Grace has now completely said that V2, to just remove the confusion, outside the cavernous sinus. Outside the cavernous sinus. No, Nindish. Grace has now said, just to avoid the confusion, that V2 also lies outside the cavernous sinus. Maxillary nerve lies outside the cavernous sinus. Okay, outside the cavernous, not in the lateral wall, below and lateral to the lateral wall. V3 was obviously outside initially only. So nowadays only remember that V1 is related to the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. Point clear? Cavernous sinus, yesterday also we saw. We just repeat its image and just zoom it over here. And here you can see the cavernous sinus. This whole is the cavernous sinus. And these are your nerves over here. These are your nerve number 3, 4. That is your V1. And V2 is shown in this diagram, but nowadays set okay, it is lying over here. V2 is somewhat lying over here. Okay. This is the maxillary nerve. Okay. And that is the mandibular nerve. You can see because it went down into the foramen ovale. So V1, V2, V3. V1, V2, V3. V1 is related to the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. So that could, now what does it tell? Is the applied part, it could be involved in the cavernous sinus thrombosis. What is the relation of sphenoid sinus and sella turcica? Sphenoid sella turcica is that cavity over which the pituitary gland is sitting. Sphenoid air sinuses are the holes or the hollow cavities in the body of the sphenoid. So obviously sphenoid air sinus are below to the sella turcica. Sphenoid air sinus are below to the sella turcica. You get a point? Sella turcica over here, you can see over here. Let me point it out over here. You can see this is the hypophysis cerebri anterior and the posterior lobe. They are sitting on the sella turcica. They are sitting over the sella turcica, and this is your sphenoid layer sinus. Clear? This is your sphenoid layer sinus. So yes, V1 may be involved in the cavernous sinus thrombosis. Now V1 goes further on and it enters into the supraorbital fissure. We have seen it yesterday. We'll see it again today about the supraorbital fissure, and we'll point out where is the V1. Now we don't see V1 over here, but we see its 3 branches, which are L, F, and N. Lacrimal frontal nasociliary. Now many times students have said that sir, we are not able to remember these names of the branches, how to remember, yaad nahi hota sir, kya karen, there are so many branches and all that. Don't worry. No, not LFT. T would be trochlear, na. Remember lacrimal, how to remember? Lacrimal gland is lateral, no. L for lacrimal, L for lateral. It is present over here in the lacrimal fossa. Lacrimal. So lacrimal nerve is lateral. Where is your nose? Nose is medially. So nasociliary. Naso is for nose. Nose is going to be medial. And between them, you have the frontal nerve. The frontal bone over here, little frontal nerve. So lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. I repeat again how to remember it. Lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. Why? Because V1 was supplying this area, so it has to give the branches to these areas. Now only one nerve cannot go and supply everything, no. So it gives branches. And the branches here, lacrimal, you can see it is flowing laterally. Then frontal, it is going more medially, and nasociliary should be more medially. Here, this is your nasociliary. Now that is inside in the middle part of the SOF, and these are in the lateral part of the SOF. Lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. Point clear? Where are these 3 nerves? These 3 nerves enter over here, and before they're entering, just these 3 nerves will have different branches. So now what we have, lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. Now lacrimal nerve, first one, lacrimal nerve, what branches which it will give, or which area would it supply? Lacrimal nerve would supply which area? It is the lateral part. So it will be supplying what? The lateral part of the eyelid, the lateral conjunctiva, the lateral part of the forehead over here, all that lateral areas, they'll be supplied by the lacrimal nerve. Let us see over here so that the things will become crystal clear. Okay, this is what trigeminal ganglion. Have a look at it. This is the V1 nerve. These are V2 and V3. Now V1 nerve, lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. This is the lateral zone, that is the medial zone. So this yellow one has to be the lacrimal nerve. You can see the lacrimal gland, and therefore this is the lacrimal nerve. The medial one over here, this green one, is the nasociliary nerve. You can see it is on the middle side, nasociliary, and this purplish one in the middle is your frontal nerve. Okay. Now, just not, you don't have to remember all of them, but important branches. Just listen to them. Now, don't try to mug up. If you think of mugging it up, you'll be already under stress. Just try to think, okay, these are the wires, these are the current wires. Now they are going and they are supplying few areas. Just remember them like wires, and what area do they supply? It is your body only, no? Okay, so let us start the lateral one, the lacrimal nerve. The lacrimal nerve is lateral, and lateral you have which bone? Lateral you have the zygomatic bone. So it gets a communicating branch from the ZT nerve, zygomatico-temporal nerve. That is a question. Lacrimal nerve gets a communicating branch from the zygomatico-temporal nerve. Why? Question is why? Why? Because it has to supply the lacrimal gland. It has supplied lacrimal gland. Yes. So V2 nerve, maxillary nerve, lies in the pterygopalatine fossa. It gives off ganglionic branches to the pterygopalatine ganglion. and then it will carry on the post-ganglionic branches into zygomatic-temporal nerve. But the problem is, how will this nerve reach the lacrimal gland? Because lacrimal gland is in the territory of the V1 nerve, and V2 nerve is over here. How will the nerve from here supply a gland which is in the territory of the V1? So V2 has to make friendship with V1. Okay, see, I have to supply a gland which is in your area. V1 says, okay, give me the fibers. V2 very helpfully, with a smile on his face, gives off the fibers to the V1 nerve, lacrimal nerve, and then it goes into the lacrimal gland. So these are secretomotor fibers. Point clear? Very, very important. Your tears are coming out. So imagine if there is any blockage or there is any lesion over here, eyes will start to become dry. And you know what will happen when the eyes will become dry? There will be dryness. Obviously, there will be lesser. There will be this sketches and all, xerosis, dryness, and there could be opacity, there could be blindness. The dryness of eye is a very big thing. You have to put on artificial tears. So that is one communication, lacrimal nerve. Then you see the lacrimal nerve is going over here, and then terminal branches will give to the conjunctiva and the upper eyelid on the lateral side. Lacrimal nerve over. So the only important thing lacrimal nerve you need to remember is this communication zygomatico-temporal nerve. Point clear? I guess the point should be clear. Next is our frontal nerve. This was the lacrimal number 1. Second was our frontal nerve. Frontal nerve is the largest branch out of these three. Lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. The frontal is the largest one. So that could also be a question. The largest branch of V1 is your frontal nerve. Clear? Now it's a giving of two branches over here. Nitish was already writing over here. These are your supratrochlear, supraorbital. Supratrochlear, supraorbital, which is more medial. Out of these two branches, which would be more medial? Now that could be a question. Supratrochlear, supraorbital, which would be more medial? Very good, Prajwal. Nitish, Sajal is saying orbital. Okay. Sunita is also saying orbital. Chinu is saying trochlear. Look at the diagram now. Already written medial over here, lateral over here. Okay. Already written, no? Various supratrochlear. I guess your vision is fine, guys. Okay. Yes. So supratrochlear over here, this is your supratrochlear more medially. So more medially is what? More medially is supratrochlear is more medial compared to supraorbital. Okay. Yes, trochlea is on medial side. Remember the trochlea, which muscle? Okay, superior oblique muscle. Trochlea was over here with the tendon of the SO. It winded around it and it went posterior laterally to insert it behind the equator of the eyeball. Okay, act as a pulley. Supratrochlear nerve is more medial than the supraorbital nerve. Okay, and what are they going to do? They are again going to, see, it is total sensory. There is no muscle. Total means total sensory. So they are all going to supply the sensations. On whatever area you have from the forehead to the scalp, they will reach the scalp over here. So supratrochlear is small and supraorbital slightly bigger branch. If the question comes in your next INI CT sort of exam, bigger nerve out of supratrochlear, supraorbital, which would be the bigger nerve? Thicker nerve is your supraorbital. Supraorbital is bigger than supratrochlear nerve. So other just important additional points I'm trying to give you guys. Nothing much over there, but yes, few additional points you may note down. Okay. Now, as they supply sensory, they will also supply the frontal sinuses, air sinus. So whatever structure you can think over here, sensations from that structure, frontal air sinus, they will carry from the frontal air sinus. Now, frontal air sinus, normally question comes, if there's a frontal sinusitis, what is its characteristic feature? If there's a frontal sinusitis, what is its characteristic feature? What are its characteristic features? Frontal sinusitis. Headache, very good. One is headache. Just going a little bit off track because it supplies, no, it will carry all those sensations. Headache, any peculiarity in that headache? Morning headache, very good, Bipanpreet. Why morning headache? Good point. So I wanted to hear from you. Morning headache, why morning headache? Why there is a morning headache? Pain in forehead, headache, everyone is good over here. That is what I'm asking, no? Bipanpreet wrote morning headache. Lacrimal related, okay, very good. It is lacrimal related. Yes. While we see it's the lacrimal, the frontal sinus, you have the frontonasal duct that opens where? From the frontal sinus, you have a frontonasal duct. Where does it open? Answer. Where does it open? Gravity, very good. It opens into which meatus? Meatus, I'm asking. Yes, middle meatus. It opens into the middle meatus. So while you sleep down, the effect of gravity is nullified. The secretion is stored over here. Let me make it over my front. It is not shown over here. Or the frontal sinus, the secretion will be stored. So as you rise in the morning, you wake up in the morning, there's this headache in the morning. This will slowly go with few minutes or few hours, maybe a hour or two, it will go down as the secretion will go down. Okay. While in the maxillary sinus, the reverse is true. While in the maxillary sinus, as the day progresses, there is more and more pain in this area of the maxilla because secretion are getting accumulated. They don't drain, no, because the opening of the maxillary sinus is higher up. So in the day, as the day progresses, there's like evening, what we not headache, but upper jaw ache, okay, or maxillary ache, or ache in the central part of the face. So the day progresses, the maxillary sinus pain also increases. In this, there's a morning headache. That was the important point. So which nerve is carrying? Now they may ask you, morning headache is perceived through which nerve? So frontal sinus, it is being innervated by which nerve? Innervated by the supraorbital and the supratrochlear nerves, or you can say V1 nerve. Are you getting a point? How they will try to jam down the information. Morning headache is due to stimulation by which nerve? It is V1, or if they ask you supraorbital, supratrochlear, or if they ask you frontal nerve main. These are the main nerves. Okay. Next we reach to which nerve? More medially we have this nasociliary nerve. So this is our third nerve. Is the frontal nerve clear, guys? So remember supraorbital, supratrochlear. Supraorbital slight bigger and supratrochlear medial. They supply the upper eyelid, the conjunctiva, and your air sinuses over here. Initially, we talked about lacrimal gland. Main part was over here to supply the lacrimal nerve to lacrimal gland by the communicating branch from the zygomatic-temporal nerve. Next, we reach more medially nasociliary nerve. Name is saying naso and ciliary nerve. Naso and ciliary. Okay. Important branches are, yes, important branches are, no, we go from proximal to distal. Infratrochlear is there. Ciliary ganglion, this is related to the ciliary ganglion. Okay, this is related to the ciliary ganglion. Ciliary ganglion, what this would be preganglionic or postganglionic? Answer. Easy one. Nasociliary nerve would be pre or postganglionic? Very good, Siddharth Sunita, pre. Nitish saying post. Okay, very good. I'm saying very good to all of you. JV is saying pre, very good. Nitish has said post. Siddharth is also saying post. Very good. Now check your answers. Who wants to check their answers? Sijil, check your answer. Sunita, check your answer. Siddharth has already checked the answer. Nasociliary nerve is what? Muskan, Divanshi, very good. It is going to be post-ganglionic. No, it is going to be post-ganglionic. This is your ciliary ganglion. Pre-ganglionic is Edinger-Westphal, third nerve. Yesterday we did know Edinger-Westphal nucleus, nerve to inferior oblique. That is your pre-ganglionic. Post are the branches of V1. Which branches? Nasociliary nerve over here. Short ciliary and the long ciliary nerves, these are all the post-ganglionic branches. Are you getting a point? So when you see that, okay, it is relaying over here, but yes, these are your post-ganglionic branches. What will they give? They will give rise to the short ciliary nerves and also the long ciliary nerves. So this nasociliary nerve, the importance of this nasociliary nerve are twofold. At least remember two things in this nasociliary nerve, which are nasociliary nerve. Two things remember. One, it is sensory to the eyeball. So if the question comes, corneal blink reflex, conjunctival reflex, what is the afferent component? Nasociliary nerve. So it is sensory to the eyeball. Second thing, remember that it is related to the ciliary ganglion. What does it mean? It means that inside this nerve, there will be post-ganglionic fibers going to the smooth muscles. Okay. Inside this nerve, it will be also carrying the sympathetic fibers. Where do they want to go? Sympathetic fibers will also be there inside the nasociliary nerve because it is communicating with the cervical sympathetic ganglion. But where will they go? They mainly go to the dilator pupillae or to the vessels of the eyeball. Dilator pupillae or to the vessels. Vasoconstrictor also, no? So twofold. Mainly by the long ciliary, this is mainly by the short ciliary. And which is smooth muscles? This post-ganglionic parasympathetic, which is smooth muscle. These smooth muscles are very good. Ciliaris mainly, and your sphincter pupillary. That we did, yes, a couple of days back in the cranium nuclei. That's getting a point. So nasociliary, see, each nerve, remember a couple of few things. It is the most sensory supply to the eyeball. It is related to the ganglion. So whatever you know about the roots of ganglion, are you getting a point? Whenever we study the parasympathetic ganglion, we study the roots, no, motor root, sensory root, sympathetic root. So all that root and all, they will be carried by the nasociliary nerves. It does not mean that they are nasociliary nerve. Nasociliary nerve is just a passage which has all these different functionalities, nerve fibers inside it. That is the only thing. So nasociliary nerve is doing this function. And then there are a few branches of nasociliary nerve that you need to know. Importantly are your anterior ethmoidal and your posterior ethmoidal should be somewhat, yes, over here. These are the two ethmoidal nerves which are over here. Therefore, it supplies the nose also. No, ethmoid bone. Where is the ethmoid bone? Ethmoid bone gives rise to a superior and middle nasal concha. Ethmoid bone forms the nasal septum. So ethmoid bone, that perpendicular plate of ethmoid, nasal septum. In the lateral wall, you have the two conchas. So where is ethmoid bone? Ethmoid bone is related mainly to the nose or to the medial wall of orbit. Are you getting a point? So nasociliary nerve, it is giving the ethmoidal nerve. You know yourself that it is sensory to the nose also, not just sensory to the eyeball. It is sensory to the nose also. Via ethmoidal nerves. Why these ethmoidal nerves? Okay, here also you see one more nerve, infratrochlear nerve. Infratrochlear nerve. So that also you have to remember. So nasociliary nerve, apart from these couple of things, sensory to the eyeball, add over here nose. Add over here nose. And infratrochlear nerve. Branch of that is infratrochlear, not infraorbital. Infratrochlear. Please remove that confusion if you guys have. There is supraorbital nerve, supratrochlear nerve, infraorbital nerve, infratrochlear nerve. Yes or no? These are the names. Welcome Jagruti and Dr. Rambabu. These are the names. Supraorbital nerve, supratrochlear, infraorbital, infratrochlear. These are coming from where? These are coming from the frontal nerve. This is coming from the nasociliary nerve, and both of these are coming from V1. Clear? Infraorbital is coming from the V2. Please remember that, don't confuse it. Supraorbital, supratrochlear, they are the branches of frontal nerve. Infratrochlear branch of nasociliary nerve. Both are branches of V1. But infraorbital is a continuation of V2 nerve, that is the maxillary division, and this is your ophthalmic division. I hope the point should be clear. Yes? Yes. Okay, so these are all your branches which are coming. Injury to the spine of sphenoid in this fifth cranial nerve. Injury, okay, related to the spine of sphenoid. Okay, we'll do that also. Now, consider these areas. See, communicating branches again are there between the supratrochlear and the infratrochlear. Obviously, supratrochlear, infratrochlear over here, communicating branches would be there. So this was your V1 nerve. You will see that no muscle is discussed over here. It is totally sensory nerve. It is totally sensory nerve. Now you come to the other one. Other one is what? Other one is our V2 nerve. V2 nerve, that is the maxillary division. Passes through which foramen? Foramen rotundum. Okay. So again, the cell body over here, and this is the, see, these are all the afferents, no? So foramen rotundum. Foramen rotundum. We have seen in the skull also. I'm showing you again over here. Where is this foramen rotundum thing? And this is your foramen rotundum over here, maxillary nerve. That was your oblique fissure, and that was your, where it is, ophthalmic nerve over here. Okay, so we have seen this foramen rotundum also. Now as the maxillary nerve comes out, what does it do? What will it do? What do you think it does? Maxillary nerve. Maxillary nerve, what does it do? It is totally sensory, first of all. Clear? Totally sensory. Which area does it supply? The area by the maxillary process. What is that area? Area basically is the upper jaw region. Yes or no? Maxillary sinus region. That is the area. Skin area is from the lower eyelid to the upper lip area. That middle cheek area. That is the middle cheek area. Okay, so first of all, you should know what it is doing. Mainly concerned with the GSA, general somatic afferent. Mainly concerned with GSA, that is general somatic afferent. Now let us see the branches. Now upper jaw is not a small thing; it is a big thing. Therefore, it will give off the superior alveolar branches. What would be the names? Superior alveolar. Alveolar means the jaw. It would be the anterior superior alveolar, middle superior alveolar and the posterior superior alveolar, which are known as simply as anterior superior alveolar nerve, posterior like that, PSAN, MSAN, names like this. Let us see a diagram and just simplify the things. So we have known, okay, it is sensory and which area it is being sensory. So both of these points are important, that it is sensory to which areas. So if we look over here, you can see the maxillary nerve. Just a second, let me see one more diagram over here. Okay, that is also maxillary. Okay, let us see both of them one by one. No worries. Okay, let us see both of them. This is your maxillary nerve. You can see the ophthalmic nerve is going over here. That is the maxillary nerve. Foramen rotundum. Foramen rotundum, it enters foramen rotundum, and then it enters into which fossa? Which is this fossa over here? Which is this fossa? This fossa is your pterygopalatine fossa with the same name, pterygopalatine ganglion. Okay, the same name, pterygopalatine ganglion. So it enters into the pterygopalatine fossa. Here it will be communicate with the pterygopalatine ganglion. It will give off a lot of ganglionic branches over here. I'm just zooming it over here. What it will give off? It will give off a lot of ganglionic. These are all the ganglionic branches. Then see where are these branches going? Zygomatic nerve. Why zygomatic? This part of the zygomatic, that is branch of V2, sensory supply. These are your superior alveolar, but the anterior superior alveolar. Okay, then this is the middle, this is the anterior superior alveolar, middle, and this should be the posterior superior alveolar nerve. This should be our posterior superior. These are supplying the upper jaw, as you can very well see. Yes or no? Posterior superior alveolar, middle, and the anterior superior alveolar. This continues in the inferior wall of the orbit. Maxillary nerve continues in the inferior wall of the orbit as which nerve? As the infraorbital nerve. Okay, so the continuation of maxillary nerve in the inferior or the floor of the orbit is your infraorbital nerve over here, which then goes where? Which then goes beneath it. See, infraorbital nerve is not going to bend like this. It is going inside the bone. There's the infraorbital canal, and then it comes out on the face as the infraorbital nerve over here. So you can palpate this nerve below the orbit. And let me show you in the skull. Let me show you in the skull. Just see it once and then you will always remember it. This is the orbit over here. Can you see the foramen over here? This foramen on both the side. Yes? Can you see this foramen? That is your infraorbital foramen. Now, second thing, if you want to see, then see in both of these skulls. Okay. Can you see this infraorbital groove? This is our left orbit over here, and this over here and below. Can you see this infraorbital groove over here? So infraorbital, this is the inferior orbital fissure. This is the inferior orbital fissure. So it also enters the inferior orbital fissure, because behind this you have the pterygopalatine fossa. See, let me put it like this over here. This region inside is the pterygopalatine fossa. This is your foramen rotundum. This is your foramen rotundum over here. So the Meckel's cave, the foramen rotundum, and maxillary nerve will enter into here. Clear? Go step by step. Maxillary nerve entering into rotundum. Anteriorly, where will it open? It will open into the pterygopalatine fossa. From pterygopalatine fossa, where will it go? Inferior orbital fissure. From there, infraorbital groove, and then it will enter over here. It will come out from here as an infraorbital nerve. Point clear? It will supply this area. So in floor of the orbit, and floor of the orbit is same as the roof of the maxillary sinus. So it is also going to supply the maxillary sinus. And you have this posterior superior alveolar nerve, okay, over here, the middle superior alveolar nerve and the anterior superior alveolar nerve, okay, supplying all the alveolars. So just the route from here to here, flow, course is important. I repeat one more time, rotundum. From rotundum, anterior it entered where? Into the pterygopalatine fossa. From there, inferior orbital fissure. From there into your, what do we say as the floor of the orbit, infraorbital groove over here. Okay, from there, infraorbital canal, and coming out from the infraorbital foramen, supplying this area. This whole picture. Only sensory nerve. Supplies no muscle. Sensory nerve. It forms a dental plexus. You can see the upper jaw, it forms a dental plexus. And these are all the different nerves over here. Let us see the other diagram. What nerves are they trying to tell us? This, I guess, would be a little bit better because other stuff has been removed. So you can see the maxillary nerve. Ganglionic branches connect nerve to the pterygopalatine ganglion. And from there, what happens? Give off the zygomatic nerve, zygomatic-temporal nerve, and you remember that lacrimal nerve communicating branch. This is the communicating branch. As it will go, and this one will go and supply the lacrimal gland. That would be the lacrimal gland. So basically, what it does, V2, it gives of ganglionic branches to pterygopalatal ganglion, and all the post-ganglionic of this particular pterygopalatal ganglion are carried by V2 nerve. So it is not just lacrimal gland, it is glands of the nose, glands of the palatal mucosa, and all that. These are the branches. Okay. So therefore, the branches of V2 are important. What are the branches of V2? Yes. Okay. Tell me, greater palatine nerve, and lesser palatine nerve. These are all branches of. These are all again branches of V2 only. These are all again the branches of V2 only. How to remember it then? Comes the point, as in how to remember it. I'll just show you in a minute or two. Okay. Try to understand this. Giving of the ganglion branches, then you can see this plexus and continues as your infraorbital nerve over here to the skin of the nose, upper lip, cheek, lower eyelid, and all that. Now coming to what are the other branches in the pterygopalatine fossa. Is up till this point clear? I guess this is a simple one, so that should be clear. Now look at the pterygopalatine fossa. This diagram very, very important. Don't be frightened by this diagram. Just look at it. This is the anterior opening of the foramen rotundum, so that is the posterior wall. So it is coming from posterior wall. It enters. This diagram is showing the pterygopalatine fossa. Look closely only on the points which I am trying to show you. This is the pterygopalatine fossa. This hole is the fossa over here. Very small ganglion over here, though it is the largest parasympathetic ganglion, pterygopalatine ganglion. Posterior wall is this. So from here, the maxillary nerve entered. It is giving off the ganglion branches. So this is the nerve of pterygoid canal, also known as the Vidian's nerve. We'll look in the seventh nerve, Vidian's nerve. So it is the preganglionic. It will relay over here, but what after that? After that, the postganglionics will be carried by branches of V2. One was you saw zygomatic nerve going into the lacrimal gland. That was the one which you saw. Other one which you saw on this is the medial wall of the pterygopalatine fossa. What is medial to it? Medial to it is the nose. So it is opening here into the nose. These are all the nasal branches. So it is also supplying the nose, as your nasociliary nerve was supplying the upper part of the nose. The other part of the noses will be supplied by the zygomatic nerve. Lateral and medial posterior superior nasal branch. Nasopalatine nerve, also known as sphenopalatine nerve, and this foramen is sphenopalatine foramen. So maxillary nerve, ganglion branches, zygomatic nerve, sphenopalatine foramen, nasopalatine or sphenopalatine nerve supplying the nose, goes below into the perpendicular bit of palatine and gives off the greater palatine and the lesser palatine nerves over here. These are the greater palatine nerve and the lesser palatine nerve. The greater palatine nerve obviously will go anteriorly, where the nasopalatine nerve will meet it. Okay, where anteriorly on the hard palate. Nasopalatine nerve will go from the nasal septum. From there it will go behind, and from here the greater palatine nerve is going like this, and nasopalatine nerve is coming like this. So nasopalatine nerve and greater palatine nerve. Point clear? Have a rough idea only. That is only needed. Nasopalatine nerve and greater palatine nerve. Lesser palatine nerve will go behind. So this is your lesser palatine nerve should be over here. Yes, it is going behind, supplying the taste from the soft palate, supplying the taste and all, and sensory supplied from the soft palate and the tonsil region. These are all the branches of the zygomatic nerve. So zygomatic nerve not only supplies this outer skin area, but much area from the inner side also. Point clear? Now let me write over here a few of the branches. Zygomatic branches. Okay. Then we have this nasopalatine nerve, also known as sphenopalatine. Then we have this superior alveolar nerve, or you can say the dental plexus formed. Obviously, terminal branch is infraorbital nerve. Then we have the greater palatine and the lesser palatine nerve. Okay, important ones. There's also meningeal branch before, but not needed. So basically, V2 is doing what? If you remember that V2 is the postganglionic for the PPG. You will remember much of the branches. If you just remember, V2 is the postganglionic for the PPG. PPG is pterygopalatine ganglion. You will remember much of the branches. And where does it sensory supply? Which area in the face? does it give sensory supply to? Is the point somewhat clear? Okay, just in case you are wondering, have a look at this diagram only, the last one, to show in this particular zygomatic nerve. PPG, maxillary nerve, foramen rotundum entering over here, communicating branches, zygomatic nerve, zygomatic or temporal, communicating branch, lacrimal gland. All these are nasopalatine, greater palatine, lesser palatine, all these nerves. This was from the seventh nerve, the preganglionic, and that was carried by the postganglionic. So pre is this and post is this over here. I hope the point is clear now. So we are also slightly touching on the various ganglions. Apart from all of this, please do remember that the fifth nerve branches also they supply the meninges. So sensory just supply to the meninges is by all the branches of V1, V2, and V3. So all of them will give the meningeal branches also. I repeat again, all of them will give the meningeal branches also. Okay. Okay. Now, last not the least, and the very important one is what is our mandibular nerve. So let us quickly revise this mandibular nerve. Mixed nerve. Yes. Mainly it is not mainly, but as it is 50-50%, you can say motor and sensory. Motor and sensory. Or the only mixed nerve from the trigeminal. Okay, now where it is going? It is coming out and it is entering through which foramen? The foramen is foramen ovale. The foramen is foramen ovale. Remember this mnemonic MALE. Mandibular nerve, accessory meningeal, lesser petrosal, and the emissary vein. One more time, mandibular nerve, accessory meningeal, lesser petrosal nerve, and the emissary vein. This is your mandibular nerve. Okay. So it will come out, it will won't relay in the motor root won't relay in the trigeminal ganglion, now it will pass through the ganglion. They will come down from this foramen ovale. So this was the foramen ovale, and this nerve will actually come down. It will have mainly the sensory component over here, and some part of that would be the motor component. They will pass through the ovale. And as they pass, they then mix it up and they form this common nerve, that is the mandibular nerve over here. This would be the mandibular nerve which will coming down from the foramen ovale. What is that foramen behind the ovale? Behind the ovale, we have a smaller foramen. I made a little big, but yes, it is slightly smaller. Yes. What is the foramen behind the ovale? Behind the ovale is foramen spinosum. Fantastic. This is foramen ovale. Okay. Now mandibular nerve has come down. It is a mixed nerve. It is a mixed nerve. Just medial to the mandibular nerve, you have a ganglion over here. I hope you know its name. It is around 1 to 2 millimeter, or maybe 2 to 3 millimeter. More than 1 to 2. Yes, it is around 2 to 3 millimeter. Ganglion. The ganglion is otic ganglion. Otic ganglion. So otic ganglion, the question frequently asked are, otic ganglion is medial to the mandibular nerve. So if you go from lateral to medial, you first have this mandibular nerve, then you have this otic ganglion. And what structure lies medial to the otic ganglion? Who will answer? What structure lies medial to the otic ganglion? The muscle over here, tensor palati. Tensor palatini or tensor veli palatini or tensor palati, whatever you want to call it. Okay, tensor palatini. And what structure lies behind the otic ganglion? Behind the otic ganglion, what structure will lie? Common sense. Behind the otic ganglion, what should lie? Parotid gland. Very good. Prajwal, middle meningeal artery. Behind the otic ganglion, you have this foramen spinosum. What is passing through the foramen spinosum? It is mainly the middle meningeal vessels. Okay. Behind it, you have this foramen spinosum. Now, this is the mandibular nerve and the few relations of the otic ganglion. Now, try to understand over here what is happening. Mandibular nerve has few branches. From the trunk, it will give off a branch which will supply a muscle. Which muscle? From the trunk, it will give off a branch which supplies a muscle. Which muscle is that? That muscle is lateral or medial pterygoid? Medial, sure, or lateral? Medial or lateral pterygoid? Lateral pterygoid. Harsh is saying lateral. Himanshi and Prajwal are saying medial. So is JV, Prajwal are saying medial. Sure? This is the medial pterygoid. It is your medial pterygoid over here. Medial pterygoid. So let us quickly look at all the branches of the mandibular nerve, and then we'll come back again and try to discuss what is important relevant points. What are the important relevant points in that particular area which we are dealing with? Okay. Okay. So let us see all the branches of the mandibular nerve first of all. Here you go. So yes, mandibular nerve came down. It will give branches main from the main trunk, which are your first of all. It will give branch to the meninges, which is known as the meningeal branch. Meningeal branch, also known as nervus spinosus. That will pass again back into the foramen. Which foramen is that? Ovale is this. Spinosum is this. This is your recurrent meningeal branch passes through the foramen spinosum. So this will pass through the foramen spinosum. Am I audible? Give me a thumbs up if everything is fine. Okay, suddenly something happened. Oof. Is it okay? I hope it remains okay. Give me once more a little bit of 2-3 thumbs ups. Okay. Okay. So yes, we were talking about the branches of the mandibular nerve. If you are still over here, then we can continue forward. So from the trunk gives off the meningeal branch, which is actually the recurrent meningeal branch known as the nervus spinosus. Passes through the foramen spinosum. This is your first branch. Second branch from the trunk is nerve to medial pterygoid. Now that nerve to medial pterygoid is adjacent. See, just middle to this, you have this ganglion, otic ganglion, and that nerve to middle pterygoid is coming right over here. So there, therefore, it is said that nerve to middle pterygoid it passes through the otic ganglion, and then what was middle to the otic ganglion? Middle to the otic ganglion was your which muscle? Tensor pallati. So it is this nerve that is going to supply the tensor pallati as well as the tensor tympani. Okay. Remember, the V3 nerve is the nerve of the first pharyngeal arch. First pharyngeal arch. So from the trunk arises these two set of branches, the nervus spinosus and the nerve to middle pterygoid. Then this mandibular nerve is going to divide into anterior and the posterior divisions. Anterior posterior divisions. From the anterior division, what we have, anterior division is going to supply the masticatory muscles. So what masticatory muscles? You have the masseter, you have the deep temporal nerve, or for the temporalis muscle, deep temporal nerve, and you have the nerve to lateral pterygoid, a nerve to lateral pterygoid over here. So anterior division will give up branches to supply the remaining masticatory muscles. Remaining means medial pterygoid was already supplied, so 3 others are left. Apart from these, it will give off one sensory nerve that is known as your buccal nerve. That is known as the buccal nerve. Buccal nerve, remember why sensory? Because mandibular division is a mixed. So it is giving motor as well as sensory. Buccal nerve is going to innervate this area. Sensation from this area is carried by the buccal nerve. So masseter, deep temporal nerve, and nerve to lateral pterygoid, anterior division. Then we have this posterior division branches. Posterior division branches are what? Yes. What are the branches from the posterior division? Posterior division branches are your very good A, L, and I. A, L, and I. A refers to auriculotemporal nerve. Auriculotemporal nerve. Sensory motor mixed. Answer. Auriculotemporal nerve is sensory motor or mixed? Auriculotemporal. Naz is saying sensory. Sensory, yes, it is a sensory nerve. Which area? Already it is telling you the area, auricular and temporal area. So it is sensory. It basically is coming from the posterior division. So obviously you have this nerve, which is, see, this was the mandibular nerve, two divisions. From the posterior division you have the auriculotemporal. It splits into two. Okay, then it innervates the areas. It also will do what? It splits into two, and there is which artery that goes in between? Am I very good? So it is related to the middle meningeal artery. Okay, and if it is sensory nerve, it is sensory to the auriculotemporal area. What is the other major function of this auriculotemporal nerve? What is the other major function of this auriculotemporal nerve apart from being sensory to the auricle and temporal area? Any other action or function you guys can think of? Think and answer. Very good, Prajwal. It is post-ganglionic for the otic ganglion. So it is secretomotor, motor over here, but not the motor supply, but to the glands for the parotid gland. It is secretomotor to the parotid gland. That is a very, very important function of auriculotemporal nerve. The second branch in the posterior division, as someone said, the mnemonic ALI, Himanshi told us, Ali, L is your lingual nerve. L is our lingual. Lingual means tongue. Lingual means tongue over here. So lingual nerve is going to go where? Lingual nerve is going to go where? Yes, it's going to go to tongue, but after a couple of centimeters, it receives another nerve. Which nerve does it receive? It receives the cauda tympani nerve. It receives the very good cauda tympani nerve. So cauda tympani nerve, which is a branch of facial that was coming forward, will enter into the lingual nerve. Now, what will this lingual nerve do? Sensory motor mixed. Sensory motor mixed. Basic idea, it is a sensory nerve. So it is going to go forward where? Into the tongue region, and it is being sensory supplied to what? It brings general sensation from the anterior two-third of the tongue. Why? Embryologically, that part was coming from the first arch. Remember the lateral lingual swellings and the tuberculum impar. First arch V3 nerve. So therefore, first arch V3 nerve, V branch lingual nerve, general sensation from the lingual nerve. Apart from being sensory to the anterior two-third of the tongue, what else will it do? Like auriculotemporal nerve, it will also be post-ganglionic nerve. To which ganglion? To which ganglion? Submandibular. Very good, Gayatri. Submandibular ganglion. To which the cauda tympani was preganglionic. To which the cauda tympani was preganglionic. This nerve becomes postganglionic. Okay. Now, if you remember, auriculotemporal nerve is postganglionic to the otic ganglion. Which was the preganglionic to the otic ganglion? Answer this statement also. Which nerve was preganglionic to the otic ganglion? Answer, answer, answer. Glossopharyngeal. Which branch, Himanshi? Very good. Glossopharyngeal nerve is good, but which branch of glossopharyngeal? That is less nerve. And therefore, you can also see from here that this was the ovale and spinosum. From ovale, what was passing? MALE. L was your lesser petrosal. So this is your lesser petrosal nerve, which will relay over here, preganglionic. And this would take the post on the postganglionic. The auriculotemporal will take the AT will take the postganglionic. Are you getting the point? Understanding the slight correlations of them. Where are they actually located? Which is anterior, which is posterior. Okay. So this was your two of the nerves: lingual nerve, sensory to the anterior two-third, and your postganglionic to the submandibular ganglion. The third nerve from here would be, I refers to inferior alveolar. Now this is your mixed nerve. What will this do? As the name suggests, it is supplying the lower jaw. It is supplying the lower jaw. So what will it do? It will enter into the lower jaw. Which is that foramen? That foramen is mandibular foramen. So this will enter into, if you look at the inner side of the mandible, if you look at the inner side of the mandible, supposedly this is the head neck part, the cornoid process, this part, and this would be the lingula part. That would be a foramen known as mandibular foramen, MF. This inferior alveolar nerve will try to enter over. This is the location of the foramen ovale, mandibular nerve, anterior division, posterior division. An inferior nerve will enter over here and it will supply the lower jaw from here to here, come out as the mental nerve. So this mandibular nerve is sensory to the lower jaw, gums and teeth. Which branch? Inferior alveolar nerve. That is also sensory, but it is a mixed nerve. So what is that motor component? Just before entering into the mandibular foramen, it will give off a branch. Which branch is this? Just before entering the mandibular foramen, the inferior alveolar nerve gives off a branch, and that branch is nerve to mylohyoid. That branch is nerve to mylohyoid. Remember, in the lower jaw, that is in the mandible, we had a mylohyoid line. Inside, if you recall, there was a mylohyoid line over here, from where the mylohyoid muscle was there. Now this nerve is entering inside the bone, so how will it supply the muscle? It will give off a branch just before it enters the foramen. That is your nerve to mylohyoid. This nerve to mylohyoid is going to supply what? First, it is going to pierce a ligament over here, so that is also a question. It pierces the sphenomandibular ligament. Question number 1 from this particular nerve. Then it supplies not just mylohyoid but also very good, ABD, anterior belly of digastric. Good, Vipanpreet and Prajwal, very good. Okay, so it is going to supply these two muscles also. So point over here is, this is your anterior nerve to mylohyoid supplying over here, and that will anteriorly go and supply this anterior belly of digastric also, because that is also coming from this mandibular, not this mandibular fossa, but yes, the area over here, the depression just beneath the chin over here. From there, the anterior belly of digastric will come. Which is more superficial, anterior belly of digastric or the mylohyoid? If you dissect from here, you encounter first which nerve? Anterior belly of digastric or the mylohyoid? More superficial is what? Yes, think and answer. Yes, digastric is more superficial. Then if you remove the digastric, inside you will look at the mylohyoid, which forms the oral diaphragm. This muscle forms the oral diaphragm, supplied by the inferior alveolar nerve over here. Okay, so these are your branches. Therefore, the mixed nerve, why? Because you can see the auriculotemporal, lingual, although they were the sensory ones, but this inferior alveolar nerve is supplying the muscles also. And you have seen the other muscles also, they are all the masticatory muscles. So in a nutshell, the V3 supplies which muscles? I told a lot of times, but still, all the 4 masticatory muscles. What is the mnemonic over here that could help you? MATT. Mylohyoid, we just saw it. Anterior belly of digastric, we saw. Tensor tympani and tensor palati or palatini or tensor villi palatini. MATT. Okay, so mandibular nerve is supplying all these areas, and just a quick nutshell over here. You can see it is passing through the foramen ovale, over here. Okay, this is your mandibular nerve. That is your motor component. So motor component is smaller in the mandibular nerve also. So in the mandibular nerve also, the sensory component is bigger. So mental, buccal, auriculotemporal, these are on the face. This is mental, buccal, and auriculotemporal. On the V3 branch. On the V2 branch, we have the infraorbital, we have the zygomaticofacial and zygomaticotemporal nerve over here. From the V2 branch. The V1 branch, we have the supratrochlear, supraorbital, infratrochlear, and its branches, the extranasal nerve. You're getting a point? The branches of V1, V2, and V3 on the face, what area do they supply? Around this area, you know, great auricular nerve. On the angle of the mandible, that skin is separated by the great auricular nerve over there. Okay. Now there are also a lot of pathologies which run from this part. Pathologies, if you can see the applied aspect, if you try to touch few of them, applied aspect are a lot. You just need to know where the nerve is starting, where the nerve is going. There's also trigeminal neuralgia. whose etiology is unknown. Most of they say, okay, that could be due to the vascular etiology. Trigeminal neuralgia question may come. It involves mainly which component? V1, V2, V3, or all common? It can involve any or all common. We opt of V1, V2, V3. The trigeminal neuralgia mainly involves which component? Yes, answer is it mainly involves your V2. Most of the times, this is the V2 that is involved in the trigeminal neuralgia cases. Okay, trigeminal neuralgia, sharp shooting pain from this part. Also in the trigeminal ganglion, there could be a herpes zoster. Also could be over there. Herpes zoster could be there. Okay, herpes zoster could be there. So various anomalies of the trigeminal nerve, various anomalies of trigeminal nerve. If we try to go more medially, that is just to wrap up the things over here. That is a V1, V2, and V3 as they reach the brain. In the brain, meaning by as they reach the brain stem. What after that? What after that? Welcome, Dhyanidhi and Kanan. Yes. As they reach the brain stem in the pontine region, what after that? How are the sensory fibers going to ascend? How are the sensory fibers going to ascend? Sensory fibers are going to form the trigeminal. I guess you have heard of this trigeminal lemniscus. So they go contralaterally, they will form the trigeminal lemniscus. They go contralaterally, they cross, they decussate, and they form the trigeminal lemniscus. This trigeminal lemniscus will reach where? Answer. Question up to you guys. Trigeminal lemniscus fibers, as they are ascending from the brainstem, where will they reach? Yes. Answer. They will reach the thalamus. If I may help you a little bit, but which nucleus of thalamus, that you have to answer. They reach the thalamus. I'm saying VPL, ventroposterolateral. VPL, Himanshi, a good point. VPL is only innervated by two lemniscus, medial lemniscus and your spinal lemniscus. Medial lemniscus and spinal lemniscus, that is the dorsal column and the anterolateral tract. Trigeminal lemniscus reaches the VPM. Okay, so no, it's not center intermediate, could be lying, but it is VPM, ventroposterior medial. Now from here it will ascend up and then it will reach the sensory areas of the cerebral cortex. This is how the sensations are taken up by our brain, how we perceive it. So if someone touches over here, or any pain, touch, temperature, pressure, whatever it is, brainstem, thalamus, sensory cortex. This is how it reaches, and all the branches we have seen. So it is the largest cranial nerve. So it took a little bit time over here as it is being the largest cranial nerve. That was all about the fifth cranial nerve, its various areas, branches, cores, division, and all of that. Now we move from fifth nerve. What was the other topic? Seventh nerve. But before that, let me ask you any doubts over here. Doubt? Okay. If no doubts, let me quickly round up few of the questions with you. Answer in the comment box. Answer in the comment box. Trigeminal nerve predominantly sensory motor. Answer quick. Predominantly sensory motor. Predominantly, very good. Predominantly it is sensory. Predominantly it is sensory. V2 nerve passes from dash foramen. V2 nerve passes from dash foramen. Maxillary nerve passes from rotundum. Very good. V1 nerve has three branches. What are the branches of the frontal nerve of V1? Branches of frontal nerve of V1. Supra, SOST, very good. Out of the three branches, which branch is related to the ciliary ganglion? Out of the three branches of V1, which is related to the ciliary ganglion? Let's say lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. We had the three branches. Lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. Which is related to the ciliary ganglion? The answer is nasociliary nerve. Answer is nasociliary nerve. Out of three branches of V1, which is sensory to the eyeball? Eyeball. I'm saying cornea, conjunctiva, eyelid. I'm saying complete eyeball. Out of three branches of the V1, which is sensory to the eyeball? Yes. Very good. That is our nasociliary nerve. That is our nasociliary nerve. Which branch of V1 gets communicating branch from V2? Which branch of V1 gets communicating branch from V2? Which is that branch? And that V2 branch was zygomatic temporal nerve. V2 branch was zygomatic temporal nerve. Very good. So V1 is related to a ganglion. You said ciliary ganglion. V2 is related to which parasympathetic ganglion? V2 is related to which parasympathetic ganglion? Answer is pterygopalatine ganglion. Very good. Pterygopalatine ganglion. V2 is also sensory or motor or mixed. V2. V1 was total sensory. V2 is what? Sensory, motor, mixed. Very good. It is also again total sensory. It is also again total sensory. So V2 is related to the pterygopalatine ganglion, and you have seen all its branches. You've seen all its branches. If I may ask you, the branch over here, lesser palatine nerve is a branch of. Lesser palatine nerve is a branch of. V1, V2, V3. Answer. Lesser palatine nerve is a branch of V2. Very good. It is a branch of V2. Greater palatine nerve gets anastomosed with which other nerve or which other branch of V2? Greater palatine nerve gets communicating branch with which other branch of V2? Very good. The answer is nasopalatine nerve or the sphenopalatine nerve over here. Very good. So V3, the trunk of V3 gives branch to the medial pterygoid or the lateral pterygoid. First of all, this answer. The trunk of V3 gives branches to the MP or LP. It gives branch to MP. Very good. Otic ganglion is medial or lateral to the mandibular nerve. Otic ganglion is medial or lateral to the mandibular nerve. It is very good. It is medial to the mandibular nerve. Okay. Middle meningeal artery, anterior or posterior to the otic ganglion. Middle meningeal artery is anterior or posterior to the otic ganglion. Posterior, anterior. Okay. Think. Middle meningeal artery is anterior or posterior to the otic ganglion. It is posterior to the otic ganglion. Oval and spinosum over here. Spinosum over here. Clear? Okay. Buccal nerve is a branch of trunk anterior division or the posterior division of the mandibular nerve. Buccal nerve is a branch of. Very good. It's a branch of anterior division. Great. Nerve to mylohyoid. Nerve to mylohyoid is a branch of which nerve? Answer. Answer that nerve. Nerve to mylohyoid is a branch of which nerve? Anterior, posterior division, auriculotemporal, lingual, inferior alveolar, or any nerve. Whatever you can think of. Posterior division, inferior alveolar nerve. Great. Posterior division, inferior alveolar nerve. Okay. Largest cranial nerve, trigeminal nerve. Trigeminal neuralgia. Very important question later on. Most commonly involves V1, V2, V3. Trigeminal neuralgia most commonly involves V1, V2, V3. It commonly involves V2. Commonly involves V2. Now, about their lesions. If there is a lesion in the V1, how are you going to test it? Suppose examiner asks you, okay, test the V1 in this particular patient. How are you going to test the V1 in a particular person? V1 completely sensory, blink reflex, great. It is for the blink. So it is afferent or efferent for the blink reflex. It is afferent or efferent for the blink reflex. It will be afferent. So blink reflex is what? It is unilateral or it is bilateral or it is contralateral. What is a normal blink reflex? Unilateral reflex, bilateral, contralateral reflex. Are you getting my mind? If I irritate this cornea, will this eye will blink or my left eye will blink or both the eyes will blink? Blink reflex is what? Unilateral, bilateral, or contralateral? Bi. Think and answer. Sijil has gone from uni to bi. Very good. Mostly unilateral. It is bilateral. Most of the head neck reflexes are bilateral. If you touch this cornea conjunctiva over here, both the eyes will close. So it is bilateral reflex. So when there is a V1 problem, there will be loss of blink reflex on both of the sides. Are you getting a point? When there's a V1 problem, it is a bilateral problem with both sides. So suppose these are the two eyes, and you test, and there this V1 is okay. Here the V1 is not okay. If you test over here, then obviously both the eyes, they will blink. But if you test over here, none of the eye will blink. None of the eye will blink. Okay. So why? Because it is bilateral reflex. It is bilateral reflex. How will you check the V2? How are you going to check the V2? If you supposedly you have to check the V2, how are you going to check it? Again, a total sensory nerve. Simple. How you have checked the V1, fine. V1 you can check the eye in this part. V2, how are you going to check the V2 part? V2 part. Suppose V2 is lesioned, what will happen in the patient? Think and answer. Think. You have learned all of that. You have been within the class if you are concentrated in the class. Now, time has come to apply that knowledge. If a V2 is lesioned, what will happen? Okay, all the touch and that all sensory sensation from the face part, that is lower eyelid to the upper lip, that will be weakened. Any other thing, because there's a lot of overlap. No, there's a lot of overlap. You may or may not. Mucus gland become dry. Okay. Prajwal is saying mucus. Which mucus gland? PPG. Very good. So post ganglionics. Think it's a very big thing. Why not the lacrimal gland? There will be dryness in the eyes. Very big thing. No, patient will actually tell you within few minutes. Patient is going to tell you within few minutes if the V2 is gone. Who will take the post ganglionic to the eyes? Forget about the nasal and palatal glands. Who will secrete the tears? Patient will tell you within minutes that there is some, these eyes are becoming dry. I don't know what is happening. We'll try to rub them up. Because whenever we blink, our eyes are clean. No, when there are no tears and all, eyes are not being cleaned efficiently. So patient will try to rub them. It leads to the erosions in the cornea conjunctiva. So there will be dryness of the eyes. Although it is rare that you are getting it as a separate lesion, but remember that. So V2, not just this touch and all, that is fine, but that is a sort of overlap of dermatome, so that becomes not very easy. Look for the dryness of the eyes. What if V3 is damaged? That is a mandibular nerve. How to find a problem in V1, V2 dryness of the eyes? Oh, again, go for other things. No, sensations over here, sensations over here. You can look at a lot of things, not just over the eye. Look over here, and mainly you will have this. So I guess you are asking that if there is a dryness of the eye, you are thinking of the problem in the lacrimal nerve, or you are thinking the problem in the zygomatic nerve. Is that the question, Sushmita? You are asking that if there is a dryness of the eye, will the problem is the lacrimal, or will the problem is from the zygomatic nerve? Look for the other things. No, for the V1 nerve lacrimal, look for the upper eyelid problem also. Is there sensation over here? Fine, for the upper eyelid. If there's a V2 problem, look at these zygomatic nerve. Okay, are these because zygomatic nerve is then continuing in the infraorbital and all that. So look for other things, associated things also, not just dryness. You don't, if they only say about the dryness of the eye, supposedly in the exam, the question, they're only saying dryness of the eye. Dryness of the eye, commonly you have to think of pterygopalatine ganglion problem. Then dryness of the eye, you have to think of seventh nerve problem. Why? Because greater petrosal nerve. You have to think of Vidian nerve problem. These are the commoner ones. Then comes your post-ganglionics and all. Then comes your post-ganglionics. So dryness of the eye could have a lot of things. Corneal xerosis, and there's also syndromes also you can think of, like Jogren syndrome that you read in pathology and all. So there are other things also, and you can think of the dryness of the eye. But yes, you have to look at the whole question. I'm just giving you a few hints over here that whatever you have learned, how are you going to revise it? Okay. Now, V3 problem. Masseter test clenching. Okay. Jaw reflex. No, look at the jaw. Test the jaw reflex. Tap over here. Mouse only closes. Jaw reflex. Look at the jaw reflex. Other thing, V3 problem. If there's a V3 problem, what will happen? It's a mixed nerve. It's always best to look for the muscles. It's always best to look for the muscle paralysis. That is easier appreciated. Because the dermatomes, there is a lot of overlap. So if there's a right side mandibular nerve lesion, how will you see? How will you check the patient in inspection, or what will you ask the patient to do? If suppose I give you a scenario when there is a right-sided V3 palsy, the right side V3 palsy, over to you guys. Welcome, Dr. Harsh. Yes. Okay, I gave you a scenario, right-sided V3 palsy. Test. What will you write in the exam? What will you write? How are you going to test it? Inspection, what are you going to see the difference? The patient is sitting like this. The patient is sitting like this. He's in your clinic, in your OPD. You're the doctor, he is a patient. He's sitting like this. And the examiner is told, okay, he's a patient of right-sided mandibular nerve palsy. Just by looking, what difference in the face can you appreciate? Difference in the face. Skin over cheek and mucous membrane, no. Just by looking at the patient. Inspection means you are not touching. Parotid, what will happen to parotid gland? Mandible deviation, Himanshi. Mandible deviation will happen once you ask the patient to open the mouth. That is also a good point. Mandible will be deviated. Look at this above the zygomatic arch, the temporalis, this bulk, this see. If you look at the skull, just try to imagine, look at the skull over here. Okay, can you see this whole gap? Can you see this whole gap? Temporal fossa. What is this gap? Temporalis muscle. Okay, now if the V3 is gone, then there will be, if just by looking at the patient, there will be a concavity, a depression on that side. But this muscle is paralyzed because this muscle is paralyzed. Okay, just by looking at it, okay, there's some problem because this is the main bulk over here. You can see it is filling the whole temporal fossa. Okay, then you will look at the things, you can test the jaw reflex. You ask the patient to open the mouth. Now, if there's a right side V3 palsy, you ask the patient to open the mouth. Where would the jaw go? Will it fall down? Will it go to the right side or the left side? The right, midline, or the left side? Answer. Once you ask the patient to open the mouth, left, right. Sujil is saying is it go to the left side. Himanshi is saying it go to the right side. Okay, justify your answers, both of you. Naz is also saying to the right side. This is the right side V3 palsy, status already given. You have asked the patient, okay, please open your mouth. Where will the jaw deviate and why? Answer. That is the most important thing and the last point in this particular session. Yes, Naz and Himanshi and Sajil and others also. Sajil is saying due to the lateral pterygoid. Okay, Sajil is the only one going with the left, and he's also explaining us that due to the lateral pterygoid, not just lateral, Sajil, your answer is right. Yes, your answer is right. It is going to the left side, but not just lateral, both the pterygoids. Why are you missing the middle one? So it is the right side, you have this muscle palsy. So this temporalis was coming from here, okay, masseter was coming from here, middle pterygoid was over here, lateral pterygoid was over here. If you imagine, this is the location, and if I just show you that, okay, this would be the position of the mandible, that would be the position of mandible. On the left side, if we try to draw some sort of same things, the temporalis muscle from here, the masseter outside, the middle pterygoid inside, and the lateral pterygoid over here. When you ask the patient to open the mouth, these muscles are not working. Okay, but these muscles are working. As the mandible is situated over here, these pterygoids, they will, opening of mouth is which muscle? Out of the four muscles, which is going to help in opening of mouth? Answer, lateral pterygoid. Very good. So lateral pterygoid will help. So this lateral pterygoid, which will help, this was, imagine the lateral pterygoid, and that was the position of mandible. It will contract, it will push the mandible to the right side. Okay, it will push the mandible. Okay, did I said the right side? No. It is to the right side only. No, not the left side. Okay, so Himanshi and Naz, you were right. Sijil, no, it is going to the right side only. Okay, as myself said to the right, left side, it will go to the right side. So wherever there is a problem, the jaw will be deviated to that side. Okay, same as very good, Sushmita. Okay, Naz, is the point clear? Though Naz, you are explaining, but others were right. Himanshi, Sijil, yes, Sijil. Okay, so this lateral pterygoid of the normal side that will contract, it will tilt the jaw to the having the side to the right side. So jaw will be tilted to the right side. Check for the jaw reflex. Then you can touch the patient. You can check for all these things. Look at this bulk of the muscles also. That will also give you a brief picture. Okay, that will also give you a brief picture. So guys, revise this fifth nerve in a detail. from starting to the end. That is why you go to learn it as a story. Next session, the 9 p.m. they'll going to talk the 7th now. We'll also going to talk on the 9th and the 10th now as much as we can. Okay. Next session is on 9 p.m. after I guess 4 hours. Till then, guys, relax, revise, and we'll see you on the 9 p.m. That is also a special class, so you can invite your colleagues and friends also. I hope you like the class. Any special points, any special tips over here, any special feedbacks over here, most invited. Always invited. Any tips or any feedback or any what you want to give, you can not give over here on any other platform in the Unacademy. Also, you may not. Okay. So that's all from my side. Just try to relax and revise. Clear? See you at 9 p.m. guys. Bye bye.